Fast, free delivery from the Home Depot makes your projects hassle-free. Forget something you need? Visit HomeDepot.com or the Home Depot app for free delivery on millions of products, including same-day and next-day options. Get delivery at the speed you need, only at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Order select in-stock items by 4 p.m., subject to availability. Welcome back to the Falcons Audible, presented by AT&T. That's DJ Shockley's. He always gives the shout out to everybody that's watching. And if you're not watching and you're listening, he's still giving you a shout out. This is Dave Archer right here, and I'm Derek Rackley. We are fresh off of the first preseason game. We are fresh off the first joint practice with the Tennessee Titans, and we are ready to give some fresh perspectives on everything that is going on with the Atlanta Falcons. Before we get into the minutia, all the updates, I think it's important that we say how grateful we are that Morice Norris from the Lions is good. He is healthy. He's going to be in concussion protocol. They're going to take it easy with him for the next 10 to 14 days. But anybody that watched or saw some of the clips from the Falcons preseason game, I don't know about you guys, but the first thing I thought about was hopefully this is not another Damar Hamlin situation. Yeah. But it was pretty scary there for a little while. Just, we don't have to go into detail, but just kind of initial thoughts as you guys saw everything unfold there on the field.
Yeah, I was calling the game on the radio with West Durham, and so you're just gotten into the fourth quarter and you start thinking about who's going to play and who you're looking forward to seeing, and boom, this happens. And then immediately football goes out of your mind, and which is essentially what happened with Raheem Morris and Dan Campbell. They said, hey, and Dan, I saw Dan's comments post-game about how classy Raheem was and how Raheem said, hey, let's shut this down. Let's think about him and his family. And that's what they did. And I thought that it was really cool the way they handled it.
Yeah, and Shock, even after the game, it was a very concerned and somber Raheem Morris when he was asked questions, and he was very short, basically saying that this was all about him and his family. Didn't really want to entertain any questions about football, and it was probably one of the shortest and sweetest, and sweetest is probably not the right word, brief press conferences that he's had, because it wasn't about what happened in the game. They can talk about what happened in the game afterwards and meetings and everything else. It was all about whether or not Morice Norris was okay. And by the way, on social media, Morice said, I'm all good, man. Don't stress it. Appreciate all the check-ins and love. And as I mentioned, they're going to take it nice and slow with him for the next 10 to 14 days and just kind of assess his health and his situation before he gets back on the field.
Yeah, similar to what Arch just talked about, for me, my mind went directly to the perspective part of it. And for so long, I didn't just say for so long, but when people watch the game, they look at it and they say, you know what, these are guys that are playing a tough physical game. They make a lot of money, but you forget about these guys. You got families. You forget about these guys have real emotions, and you can see it from both sides. I mean, both teams coming together, praying in the middle of the field. You talk about both head coaches coming together. You always hear the word brotherhood. When you're in the National Football League, as we were, you know that it's a brotherhood, not just within your team, but it's a fraternity to play in this league, and it goes a long way. You see a guy go down, you always want to fight and compete hard, but you never want to see a guy injured in that kind of manner, and it puts different perspective, I think, on the game. And also on players that, these guys play a really physical game. They're playing at the elite level, but you never want to see a guy go through what Morice Norris had to go through, or Damar Hamlin, because it's way bigger than football once you get done with it.
I was fortunate to obviously be in the locker room right after the game and normally talk to Raheem on the radio and for Fox 5. Excuse me. And this was not just something for TV. That was what he told his team. When Raheem brought the team together, he talked exactly about what you just said, and how everybody – let's make sure that we have one solid mind going towards him and his family. And then Bijan Robinson got in and gave the post-game prayer, and he said the same thing in the prayer too. So that was not some kind of, put on TV thing or something like that. That's exactly how they felt.
Class act by both organizations and doing the right thing in that moment, which was thinking about his family and his personal safety and health moving forward. So we are happy that he is good to go, and we look forward to seeing him back out on the football field when the time is ready for him. All right, let's go ahead and change gears here, talk about the preseason. The first week of the preseason is in the books. And guys, before we dive into the Atlanta Falcons, was there anything from any of the other teams or any of the other storylines or players that kind of stuck out to you from the weekend that you were maybe paying attention to? Was it a Shedeur Sanders? Was it a Travis Hunter? Was it anybody else from around the league that kind of, I want to see how he did, or, I'm interested how that team fared in their first preseason game? Anything come to your mind, Arch?
I think that I gravitated towards the quarterback situation, Shock. I mean, I think there's a lot of young quarterbacks that were getting a chance to play, whether it's J.J. McCarthy in his second training camp after being injured in Minnesota. And we're going to see him in week 2 relive that national championship game of a couple of years ago with Penix and McCarthy. But just the talk and the conversation about the maturity of these young players. We saw some guys step up last year, to the like of Jaden Daniels and some that stepped up as young quarterbacks. We're hoping our guy has a chance to do that too. So I thought just the conversation around those guys, Shedeur Sanders, how well he played. Cam Ward, who we're seeing this week. Cam Ward had 2 drives. He had 1 touchdown drive in there where he went 5 of 8. Hit Calvin Ridley 2 or 3 times in the drive. Yeah. Just was cool to hear them talk about the maturity level of the quarterbacks.
And what about Travis Hunter getting his first action on both sides of the ball in the preseason game, albeit small sample size, but 18 total snaps. I think it was 10 on offense, 8 on defense. A lot of people curious, Shock, on whether or not that whole experiment is going to work, him playing both ways in the NFL.
Yeah, I think that's still something that's going to be in the works, I should say, because obviously, like you mentioned, limited sample size that he had in that ball game, but I think it's going to be something that people pay attention to because you just don't see it at this level. And you see it in college a couple times maybe, but you don't see it at this level with the elite players that are at this league, and you don't know if a guy can do that at that kind of level for 17 ball games. So, it's going to be interesting to see how much they use him. Is he used 60-40 on offense? Is he used 50-50? Is it, throwing situation, whatever it may be? It'll be interesting to see what they do with Travis, but I think he's going to be a big part of the conversation all year long about what do they do with the guy who, wants to do both? Can he do both?
The NFL is a game where the most physically gifted players in the world excel. But what I don't think a lot of people realize is the mental capacity it takes to perform in the NFL in one side of the ball. Okay? Think about all of the stuff that you guys had to absorb and then things that had to just happen in real time, in the snap of a finger, 2 or 3 seconds, right? And then to think you had to do all that for the defensive side of the ball as well, right? So there's so much that goes into it from a mental perspective. I'm not saying that he can't do it, but that's going to be so hard because that's where you gain your edge in the NFL is can you do all the small, minute details better than everybody else? Because guess what? Everybody at this level is great. They are fast. They are physical. They are strong. They can make plays. It's how do you gain an edge up here? Right. So let's talk a little bit about the Falcons in their first preseason game, of course, against the Lions. DJ, I want to come right back to you. What kind of stuck out to you as far as some things that you were looking for that kind of popped off the field or popped off the page, if you will, from some performances in that game?
I think, number one, I wanted to see what this defense was capable of. Obviously, you're not going to have all the cast and characters you got out there, but you can see what the culture, what the vibe would look like. And Rick talks about the ball as oxygen. We talked about it last week. We talked about what they want to do, and I thought we saw that was evident. Like, they took the ball away a couple times. They got to the quarterback. Guys were flying around. Guys were punching the ball out. And you could tell that's just not something that's preached in the meeting rooms. That's something just preached on the practice field. They took it from there to the actual game, and I thought that was really cool to see. It stuck out to me, when you watch a Brandon Dorrell kind of retrace his steps and come back and, run down Hendon Hooker, and here comes, Josh Woods to punch it out, and here comes, D. Offer to scoop it up. Like, it's a total team effort, everybody flying to the football, and you don't get that if you don't get it done out here in the practice field and you're doing these things, you're talking about it, you're repping it. So it was good to see some of those guys flying around, making plays, and trying to, have an influence. And I think Josh Woods is a great kind of example of why I love preseason, because he may be a guy that now Falcons fans are paying attention to now, like, this dude was everywhere. This dude was making tackles all over the field. He was forcing fumbles. He was, he led the team in tackles. It's a name that really didn't stick out when you first started and came to camp. But now he's a guy that you saw in week 1, like we saw last year when we saw Demarcco Hellams. Like, yeah, we knew he drafted him, but when you watch him play, that's a different story. And you watch Josh Woods sitting in the middle of that defense, and he's flying around, making plays on special teams. You're like, okay, I want to see more of this dude. So I was excited to see kind of the the outline image of what this defense could look like and the kind of things that, they're wanting to do. Obviously, they were very vanilla in what they want to do, and I won't go show you a lot of stuff from a defensive coordinator scheme-wise, but you love to see the way the guys played, and it gives you kind of a picture of what, when the starters get in, what's expected.
Yeah. Arch, a lot of defense from Shock in his observations. What did you think?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of that stuff from a defensive perspective, just attitude, how fast they wanted to play. Demarcco Hellams is a guy that embodies what Elbrick wants to be.
Oh, yeah.
And he dropped the hammer a couple times early on. By the way, I thought the call was completely ridiculous on him. But I thought Hellams kind of maybe established a tempo on the field early on. So that was fun to see. So I'll switch it over to the other side of the ball.
Yeah.
I was not pleased with our inability to run the football. Yeah. I thought that was alarming. I thought there were some opportunities there that, frankly, we just didn't get people blocked up front. Didn't do it the right way. I think the young backs were trying to run, but there just wasn't a lot of place to go.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I thought Easton Stick played extremely well. I thought he did a really good job of keeping his poise. I thought that the receiving group that he played with, whether it was Sills or Drummond or Blair or Nash or Skinner, all those guys made plays, and I thought they did a really good job of attacking the football. He made a throw to Sills early on that extended a drive where Sills is running an over route, and the ball's a little bit late. He's like the third read, and he gets it to him a little bit late. And the defender is close enough where he can undercut it. Sills attacked the football. He lost ground back to the quarterback to attack the ball, secure the catch, first down, move the chains. Those kind of things stuck out to me from an offensive standpoint, but need to run the football better. Yeah. But I do think that when you start thinking about it, I know Easton Stick, we hope Easton Stick doesn't have to play. And you don't know what's going to happen potentially with Kirk Cousins. You have no idea what's going on there with the injuries around the league, and maybe there's a trade. You don't have all that conversation that comes out. I think you feel pretty confident about Easton Stick. If you had to play him in a game, the dude could step in there and go.
Yeah, pretty good first performance from him in a Falcons uniform going out there this year and performing. I want to say his numbers were 83% completion rate through the first half, which was pretty impressive. And he did what he had to do, like you talked about, the 11 carries, 22 yards in the run game. They weren't able to count on that element. And so Easton Stick, Zach Robinson said, okay, well, let's go through the air, let's get some work, and let's see if we can move the football in that manner. And they were able to do it. One thing I wanted to ask you guys about defense is we did get a chance to see for the first time a little Jalon Walker and James Pearce on opposite sides. And those two guys not necessarily filling up the stat sheet, but I think you could maybe say, and we know that there's not a lot of game planning that goes into preseason, but maybe you say that the focus from the outside was on those two guys, which maybe that opened up some of those opportunities for a guy like Brandon Dorlus to make some plays inside.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You look at that interior, the defensive line. That was a big topic of conversation, is who's going to fill the void of a Grady Jarrett. Obviously, we're looking forward to seeing Ruke Orhorhoro in there as well. He played. Dorlus played. When you talk about the two guys on the outside, obviously, I think there were moments where they were still trying to fill out what this NFL speed, what the physicality was going to be like, because there were times you can watch and say, well, it looks like he may have gotten eaten up on this play. You're like, oh, man, he could have did something else. But there are other times where you're like, okay, here's both guys really closing the edge. Here's a play where James Pearce is really turning the corner and forcing the quarterback up in the pocket. There's a really good play. The Falcons actually have it on their X where you see Jalon Walker. Guy comes up trying to block him inside. He keeps his head inside, fights off another guy and makes the tackle, falls inside on the play, or he keeps leverage on the play. Those are little details that they turn on the tape and say, you know what? You played it right. You talk about some of the minute details when you're watching a guy or playing. Those are the things that coaches look for. And as fans, you look for the stat sheet stuff. Oh, did he get a sack, tackle for loss? All that kind of stuff is good. But in these moments where they're getting their first start, they're getting their first chance to play at this level, you want to see them do those small things correctly. And I think there were times where both guys had opportunities to rush the passer, and you could see him get some pressure there. I saw James Pearce had a couple pressures in the ball game. Jalon's still trying to figure a couple things out with the speed of it and, how to go against, certain guys. But they're both going to learn, man. They're both still young. They're going through the process, and we'll see how they, get better from week 1 to week 2.
It was evident there right at the end of the half where you got a glimpse of the future. Mm-hmm. Pearce on one edge, Walker on the other edge, Dorlus and Orhorhoro inside. Mm-hmm. And they were rushing a 4-man pass rush. Hard rushes to the outside by both those guys, shoved Kyle Allen up in the pocket, and he tries to get by, and Dorlus strips the ball out. Now they fell on it and got it back. That ended the half.
Yeah.
but you got a 4-man pass rush from the last 4 guys you've drafted in the draft that play on the defensive line. I thought that was pretty cool.
A lot of focus on the new faces, but before we end up moving on, I did want to mention Arnold Ebiketie as well. I thought he was active in the game, and I believe he was the one that ended up getting the red zone forced fumble, which is huge. Like, once the opposing offense is driving down the field and they get in the red zone, and not only do you get a stop, but you get a turnover, that's huge. And he's another one of those guys where it's like, can he have a breakout season to where he ends up, and then all of a sudden you got this rotation of pass rushers that can get in there. So he flashed a little bit to me on some of the plays that he made on the defensive side of the ball. So continue to see all those guys. That's one preseason game this year under their belt. How much better do they get now that they know, okay, this is the speed of the NFL. This is what I have to do. I got locked up a couple of times. How do I adjust the next time? So speaking of adjust, it's now into the next week of the preseason. And as we mentioned, the Falcons are hosting joint practices with the Tennessee Titans this week. So we talked a little bit about Cam Ward and his performance last week, but we got a brand new team on the Falcons headquarters fields, and you guys got a chance to go out and watch this first practice. So, Arch, let me start with you and say, what did you see out there from these joint practices? Because it was everything from one-on-ones to a whole lot of teamwork, and it's good versus good. It's different scheme, which is what Jeff Ulbrich said after practice today. When you get to see a different scheme, that's the value in having these joint practices. What did you see that stuck out this morning?
I thought it was a defensive day by both defenses, and just in my opinion. I'm shocked what your thoughts were, but it looked like both defenses were kind of controlling the line of scrimmage, and both were able to get pressure on the quarterback. I thought that there were some errant throws by both quarterbacks. I'm talking about Penix and Ward. I'm talking about the number 1 guys in particular. So I thought that the defenses had some of the day. And I also thought that real-time adjustments to routes, because one of the things you get out of joint practice, and we talked about it, is you're going to see a different scheme. You're going to see a different way of playing things. And so now my routes, a lot of our routes in an offense, as you guys both know, adjust based on what I'm seeing, whether I'm sitting it down in a zone or whether I'm playing leverage and breaking away from man coverage. And teams play them differently. And Tennessee plays differently defensively than we do, and so that's what's valued. Now you're getting real-time information and real-time adjustments on the move, and I didn't think we did a couple of those things very well. So there's that information, that knowledge that you log back in. As far as taking the football away, Shock, it continued.
A couple times.
Took the ball away from Tennessee, I think, 3-4 times today? Again, I didn't see us throw. Did we throw a pick? I don't think we threw any interceptions. So took care of the football. So you win that battle 3-0, 4-0, you're going to like what you find out at the end, usually in those situations. But I felt like it was more of a defensive day by both teams than it was offense.
By the way, if you didn't get a chance to see it, Dave, along with Taylor Vismore, did a show this morning kind of briefing what was going to happen in the joint practices, and they also got a chance to show a little bit of the actual one-on-ones that happened. So if you didn't get a chance to see it, go back, take a look at it. You can see Drake London getting to go some one-on-one, AJ Terrell with a great couple of matchups against Calvin Ridley in this morning's practice. You want to see some actual action, go back and take a look at that. Shock, what stuck out to you from the joint practices this morning?
I think the biggest thing is the communication that you have to have between, I think, your offensive line, quarterbacks, and receivers seeing it on the same page. And Arch talked about there were a couple of instances where, things didn't work out the way you wanted to. And I got a couple of examples. There was one particular play in team offense where it was Falcons' first team offense going against the Titans' first team defense. And they give a look, and it looks like they got double A gaps, and they bring pressure off one side, and Penix has to throw it away. 2-3 plays later, they give the exact same look, but this time they bail out of it. And Penix hits Ray McLeod on a corner route, and they go from it looks like, they're bringing pressure to they're playing cover 2. And you can see the communication between Penix and the offensive line talking about pointing guys out. But then there's also the communication that you don't have with your receivers, but they also got to be on the same page at the same time is, it looks like it's man coverage. It looks like that guy's pressed, but on the snap of the football, he bails. Corner goes, into cover 2. You have the safety over the top, and the ball is out right in between the corner and the safety, and you got a big-time completion. That's the little thing that you get from these joint practices that's maybe a little bit different from when you're going against your own team, because you know what they're going to do. You know what certain looks look like, but now you get a different look. Now the offensive line has to communicate differently with the quarterback, with tight ends, with the backs. I saw Algier pick up a nice blitz in blitz period. And then the situations of practice is what I like too. In a game, you have to kind of adapt to what's happening in the game. Out here, the coaches can dictate those situations. There were a couple times where, hey, the Falcons jumped off, Rob's like 3rd and 15, let's back it up. Or they get a couple yards, all right, 3rd and 6, here we go, 3rd and 6. And you can kind of simulate what you want to see, which helps you give a look, and then you can go through the process of how you go through it all. So I love the details in which that you watch things that's happening, and then you watch maybe a mistake like Arch talks about, and then you can see a couple plays later, you overcome something that maybe hurt you a few plays ago, and you adapt and you communicate and you get through it. So some of those small things for me stuck out that, offensively you overcome some things, but then also things that you got to work on, which helps you as you get ready for week 1.
Yeah, there's a lot of collaboration that goes into these practices between the head coaches and the coordinators saying, hey, what do we want to get here? What do we want to work on? It is controlled. But I think it's also good to note for anybody that hasn't paid attention to joint practices before, but they have actual officiating staffs, like real officials that are on the field that are officiating these plays, this competition, if you will, just like it's games, so they can get work. And then also so the players and the coaches can have a realistic depiction of, was this guy offsides? Was that holding? Yeah. Was this a penalty? And how do you end up adjusting off of that? So we know that there's value into facing another team, another set of bodies, but Arch, is the importance specifically for the starters? Because again, I don't think Raheem Morris has made a mention as far as what's going to happen this week, although my guess is it's going to be a lot of the same as what we saw last week, meaning not a lot of the starters are going to play. But this is where the starters do get their work. That's where a lot of this value comes in, correct?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question, Rack. The more times you can rep at a heightened adrenaline situation, a heightened competition situation, without getting your guys banged up. And that's the beauty of this, is it is controlled around the quarterback, and it is controlled at tackling guys to the ground to a certain extent. We still see some guys get a little overzealous, and you still get guys drugged to the ground from time to time because it's not our guy, that's their guy, so I'm going to tackle their guy. For the most part, the two teams treat each other the way they're supposed to, and you want to take care of one another. But the unscripted looks, the Shock was talking about, where you got to adjust your route based on coverage, and this leverage is different than what I see from our guys. So I'm supposed to continue out instead of sitting the route down. Just all the little things that come from that. There's tremendous value in all that. But yeah, the starters probably aren't going to play. So where do I get as close to game type reps as I can? Other than for the quarterback, I think it's pretty close to full speed. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's and
fun, tackling guys, right?
It's fun to watch it because it feels like game kind of speed out there because you're going against somebody different. And we were standing on the sideline, and they had a team period, and you hear Bergeron coming up, and he's yapping. He's into it. I'm talking about he is, like, lit. He is talking about they don't want this. They can't feel it. This guy ain't made a play. And you can tell that there's a different kind of juice and energy about it when you see somebody else and you're going against them and you're battling. So, like Arch mentioned, this is a little bit – it feels a little bit different, but it's still controlled in the fact that you take care of each other. But it's still heightened to a sense of we can get some real quality work because of the speed that you're going at.
I mean, you kind of know after you've gone against the same players, right? Like if you're an offensive lineman, right? You're talking about Bergeron. You're going up against the same, I don't know, let's call it 12 defensive linemen for the last 3 weeks. You know what their tendencies are, right? Yeah. Like this guy's a power guy. This guy's his speed, quickness. This guy likes to use a swim move. He likes to grab and rip, right? But then all of a sudden you get these new jerseys in, and guess what? It gets a lot more like the regular season. You don't necessarily know what their best move is. And that's when you got to get back to your own technique, and you got to execute your technique, and you got to be able to work and control your 1/11th, right? I know it's one thing that you talk about a lot.
For sure.
And so it gets back to the fundamentals of what football is like every single week in the season when you get new bodies in there that have strengths, that have weaknesses, and you got to prepare properly for it. So that's what you get with some of these preseason joint practices. All right, let's kind of shift gears and talk about second game in the preseason. Arch, I'm going to go to you, and I'm going to ask, what position group or what areas do you want to see the most growth in this week after what you saw on the field last week and maybe what you've seen in practice a little bit that needs to take the next step forward in week 2?
Yeah, it's easy for me, Rack. You got to run the football. You got to be able to get off the ball and run the football. And I know that we've got a group, a front five, first five, I think we feel pretty comfortable about. Saw News'll play a great deal last year, so you're not overly worried about the fact that Dahlman is not your main center. News'll played 8 games last year, I think 6 games the year before that. So he's played a lot of football. So I think you feel good about the starting 5. I'm not sure about the rest of it. Now, who's the backup center? Who's going to slide into that? Storm Norton's been a little banged up. We haven't seen him at the swing tackle. I thought it was an indoctrination in the National Football League, quite frankly, for Jack Nelson. I thought he had some moments there where he had some good, solid moments, but there was some moments, hey, we're not in Kansas anymore or Wisconsin anymore or wherever.
Yeah.
So there was guys coming off the edge. So there is that, you exponentially think to make him better next week. But you got to be able to run the football,
100%.
And I think that that's something that I think Dwayne Ledford and an offensive line group will be concentrating on.
When it comes to offensive line, generally, fellas, on an active roster, you're going to keep somewhere from 8 to 10 players. And then, with the expansion of the practice squad, there'll be a couple more guys down there that you have additional bodies. But generally, you're looking for 8 to 10, right? We probably know who 5 to 6 are going to be. Right. So, DJ, they're looking for that other 2 to 3 guys. Doesn't have to be offensive line for you, but what area of the game or what players are you looking for this week to make the biggest impact?
I want to see if the receivers can continue what we saw last week. Arch mentioned about 4 or 5 guys who, showed up in that ball game. And we know you look up and you say, hey, my man Dylan Drummond had 8 targets. He had 8 catches. Look at Chris Blair, had 3 targets, had 3 catches. They were accessible to the quarterback. They made plays when they had to. You talk about Nash adapting to the football and, ball behind him, snagging a few balls. I want to see him do that again and again. See, you saw it in week 1. Can you do it again in week 2? And I think that speaks volumes to a staff, to the coaches who are evaluating you that, this guy can do this consistently over time. And I think that matters the most is, okay, you think about in the season, you go in and you're that 5th, 6th, sometimes maybe 7th receiver, and a guy goes down and you're thrown into this opportunity. Are you ready for it? Can you go out and, in that moment where you get the opportunity to make a play, can you be the guy that makes that play with the limited reps that you get? And I think you saw a lot of guys making a case for themselves to, be that guy. But there's going to be some opportunities in this ball game. Can you do that? And we've seen plenty of times where a guy has a really good week 1, but can he show up in week 2? Mm-hmm. And we're going to be a lot of guys in that spot who are having the opportunity to go do that. Can they do it again?
Specifically, there's a position. I'm wondering if you guys have one position in mind. Mine is going to continue to be the competition that's going on at the nickel position with D. Alford, with Billy Bowman,
yeah.
Mike Ford. Clark Phillips is banged up right now, so Clark is kind of eliminated from that for now. Not saying he's eliminated from the team, but he's not able to be on the field and compete. I'll be interested to see from a one position specific, the nickel spot, because all those guys are going to play, who begins to solidify, maybe take the reins of that. Because I think you can start to feel Hughes and Terrell on the outside. And obviously Jesse's not going anywhere. It looks like Fuller and Watts are kind of rotating in there. Hellams just threw his hat in the ring and said, wait, don't forget about me. I want to be on the field as well.
100%.
But I don't know that you necessarily feel that way about the nickel spot. Yeah. I think that D's had a pretty good training camp.
Yeah.
But Billy made a couple plays in special teams in the game. Yeah. Got a chance to play some nickel. Mike Ford is a guy that's going to play special teams for you, but he's capable of playing corner and nickel. I'll be interested to see how that plays out. What about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, you talked about offensive line. You talked to run game, nickel, wide receivers. I'm looking at, again, still one of the biggest focuses in the offseason, and that's going to be the defensive front, and it's going to be pass rush. Because I think we saw some really positive things that came out of the first game. But we all know, and you kind of alluded to it from the first to the second game, in order to be good in the NFL, it's consistency.
Yeah.
So can you do it in the first game, and then do it in the second game, and then do it in the third game, and then come back and do it when live bullets are flowing in week 1, all the way through week 18 in the season, because that's what the really good teams do. But my eyes are still going to be on that defensive front. And I'm not going to just say edge rushers. I'm going to talk about that defensive front because Dorless was active. You mentioned Ruke, and we saw the rookie draft picks in there. I want to see, is it a little bit better this week? Do they still find a way to take the football away, to rake the ball out? Are they getting off of blocks aggressively? Are they getting around the corner to make the quarterback feel uncomfortable? These are all areas where I feel like Atlanta has not quite excelled in the last couple of years, and why they've invested so many assets to that position group. I want to see the consistency from week 1 to week 2. Can that defensive line continue to produce?
And I'll add a little extra to it, Rack. And we're talking about these joint practices. We were over there watching today, and there were several instances where Cam Ward had nothing, or he had to try to escape the pocket. And you see pressure coming. You see different looks from that defensive front, and they're showing the ability to be able to get to the quarterback and push that pocket, especially with a guy who can move like a Cam Ward. And there were instances today where you're like, okay, that looks good. I like the way the pressure is coming. Now you're forcing on the back end. Or there was times where he may have had a little time and the back end had straps on him. And you're like, okay, that looks good too. So putting it all together, I think, goes hand in hand with what you're talking about.
All right, well, so we talked about run game. We talked about nickel position. We talked about wide receivers. We talked about defensive front. Hey, let us know what you're looking for in week 2 of the preseason. Or maybe it's the joint practices this week, and you want the guys to let you know how that ended up shaking out on the field. Let us know, maybe down in the comments, or reach out to us and let us know what you got your eyes on this week. Well, that's going to wrap it up for the Falcons Audible presented by AT&T this week. We'll be back. All 3 of us will be at the game this week, so we'll have 3 sets of eyes on everything that's going on down in the field. And we will come back to report on you next week. And we'll also start maybe getting into conversations of roster cut downs will be coming down in a couple of weeks, right? That means we're getting closer to what the actual team is going to look like. And the regular season is just around the corner. I know everybody can't wait. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. That's Shock. You got anything for him before we leave?
Hey, we did not plan to wear the same shirts today.
I know, right?
Me and Rack.
There was no conversation about it.
Arch had a great comment I'm not going to use, but it was really funny. But
now, see, you throwing me under the bus.
No, it was funny.
I got the old school logo on. See that? And the new school logo, so I got them both covered.
Old school, new school player. That's what we call it. You know what I'm saying?
I so much want to give you a comment,
Gracie.
but I can't. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. We'll be back next week. This is the Falcons Audible presented by AT&T. Take care, everybody.